that we have, or the session that we are doing is like transition from functional to performance testing. So let me just do a quick thing, like what is the difference between the functional testing and the performance testing. Okay, yeah. So first thing is that's the most critical thing that we have to find before we even started to do this one. So because most of the time, the reason why I'm bringing this part here is we do have, I mean, like anybody, like a developer will have an objective, a functional testers will have an objective, the performance testers, the automation testers, everybody will have their own objective, and we do work towards it. I mean, like our mindset that we have should change. So the main thing is like you should transition, you should change your mindset from functional tester to performance tester. So that's the main thing that we are having this session for. Because previously, when you're doing a functional testing, we do check for the functional defects, right? But when we are doing the performance testing, our objective is to find not the functional defects, but to find the non-functional defects. Yes, again, functional testing is an inbuilt one now. So we don't say that, okay, the login failed, but still the performance is better. It's not that. So when you say that the response time for the login page is very quicker, that means that involves the functional testing as well. The login has passed, and then you're going to do your performance testing, and you're going to find the KPIs, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the next thing is, most of the people, I mean, like again, I'm bringing you here my example as well. People from other teams, from functional testing team, basically they will come and ask you that they want to create uh, a flow, and tell them, and they'll ask you that, okay, create a flow, do a performance testing for negative, I mean, like for failure scenarios as well. So people, you used to get that weird requirement from people from functional testing people. Actually, that's too weird, I would say, because in performance testing, we normally don't do a negative scenario. We always do the happy scenarios, that is the positive scenarios. We never do a functional, because just imagine uh, you don't find people who are doing the wrong username password, all the users, right, are a percentage of users. It's that's just very less, and again, that too is not going to impact your performance. So the point here is you don't need to worry about the function, sorry, the positive or the failure scenario. So when you're doing a functional testing, so the main thing is like the objective is here is to find the functionality bugs. But when it comes to the performance testing, you have to get the non-functional attributes, or I would say the response times, or whatever, the performance indicators, which tells that the application works fine. You don't need to worry about the functionality. So that's the main objective. So think about the non-functional attributes and not about the functional bugs. Okay, so that means the functional bugs are already as part of your non-functional testing. And okay, so the next thing is the correctness of features. Say for example, if you have any if say for example, it can be like any uh, adding to cart. So while you are doing add to cart, you're going to check the correctness. Say for example, when I say the correctness, you're going to click on add to cart button, and that should add your items to the cart. But when it comes to performance testing, clicking on add to cart is same, it should work, but again the point here is how quicker it happens, right? So that's the difference between the functional and non-functional testing. And the next part is the user interface and input validation. So when it comes to functional testing, you're going to worry about the user interfaces. Say for example, if any button is getting loaded or not, or if any input validations is happening, like say for example, if you're entering 10 items, if you're adding 10 items to their cart, and when you click on add, it should add 10 items, it should add like more or less. But on the other hand, when it comes to performance testing, you should check the stability, and you should also check the performance of the databases. Like when you're entering 10 items, and when you're clicking add, that should add 10 items. How quicker it is happening, that's the important part. And also it should not create any issues in terms of the database logs or anything. So when you're adding 10 items, it should not take too much of time. So that depends on how your web server sends that data to the app server, and then it sends it back to the uh, uh, database server, and then it comes back. The response comes back to you that okay, 10 items has been added, and that has been very quick. So that is the part that when it comes to the functional non-functional testing. And again, the business logic. So when it comes to the functional testing, again, the business logic is another important part where you have to check for any business logics. And when it comes to the performance testing, you have to check for any scalability and resources. So you don't need to worry about the uh, when I say you don't need to worry about that, okay, it's an assumption that every functional testing is being done and all the functionality is working fine, and only then you'll move on to the performance testing. And here, as I told you, we have to check the scalability and resource usage. So when I say scalability and resource usage, like we all know, when we are increasing the user load, it should work fine. And the resources, so when I say resources, you should check for your um, the CPU of your machine, of your app servers, and then the memory usage. So all you should all check about the CPU and memory usage of the system. And in fact, if it is required, we can also check the disk input output, the network IO. We can check all these, but the primary one here is the CPU and the memory. So these are the two factors that we have to check when it comes to the uh, uh, identifying the metrics, right? So that's the basic difference between the functional testing and the performance. And again, I'm telling you, your mindset should change if you are someone who is planning to move from functional to, you should not think about the functionality of applications, rather you should think about the quality, like what quality are you going to use. When I say quality, you should check about the non-functional attributes, right? So that's the difference between the functional tester and the performance tester. The functional testers will always check about the functionality, and the performance testers will also always check about. So once you move on to once you move on to performance testing, you should always think about these concepts, like what is going to be the response times, what is going to be the minimum, maximum, average CPU utilization, what is going to be the maximum memory usage, is there any garbage collection, or how is the garbage collection that's been fixed, and how is the GC collection, how is the memory leak is happening. So you should think only about that. Only then you will find that okay, I have been moved from the functional to non-functional tester, right? So that's the difference. And any other doubt? So do you think that what could be the difference? Do you find any other difference between the functional tester and non-functional tester? I know most of you people were from the functional testing background, so you know better than me. So yeah, you can add any other points if you find that okay, I found this as part of functional testing. Do I need to check as part of non-functional testing? You can add any points to that.
Wasn't like
Yeah.
CPU, memory usage, and all. So
Mm.
if you're using cloud and all, we have to check something like that. What all we need to check over if it's part of a cloud in non-functional application?
Um, Sorry, what is the question? So you have your application in cloud, right?
Yes.
That's okay. Okay, so you have your application in cloud. Fine. What is the question now?
So as a performance tester,
Hmm.
what all do I need to check if it's in cloud? Like the bandwidth usage, something that
Hmm.
comes. Is there in
Okay,
something like that?
I understood. I understood. Okay. So previously before cloud, any idea how the applications are hosted?
It is on premises.
Exactly, yeah. So previously, every business, they have their own data set. I mean, like the host setup. So they do have again the same set of servers in their own premises. So that's what the on premises comes into picture. And again, cloud is nothing. Cloud is safe, but it's not in the business premises. It's in their own premises. Like if it can be inside AWS premises, it can be inside Azure, or it can be inside the GCP premises. That's the only difference. It's not somewhere outside the world. It's somewhere in. The only thing is, the only difference is when it is an on-premises one. Say for example, let me take about uh, a quick example about JC Penny, or it can be any of the insurance. Like take for example, it can be an ABC insurance. So ABC insurance will have their own uh, cloud data service. I mean the service part in their own premises. If they have like 2 to 3 branches, through 2 to 3 locations. Say for example, one in Washington DC, one in Chicago, and one in California. So they do have the data centers A, their own data centers. I'm telling you about the premises, on premises. They do have on premises A, and then one at on premises B, and then one at on premises C. And then they can share their load to the users across US. So what happens is like based on the load balancing and based on their app gateway and everything, what happens is like the users from the nearest on premises will be accessed. So the same is happening with the AWS, but the point with AWS or Azure or GCP is they do have more data centers compared to the business people, because the AWS or Azure or GCP's primary business is to set up their data centers very closer and in maximum locations, right? So the point here is, okay, so coming back to your question, so what is the KPIs that I have to find when it comes to cloud? Again, I would say it's the same thing. You are not going to worry about any other part, because the point here is any cloud setup or any other cloud that we are going to utilize will give us the assurance that we are going to have 99.9 percentage of availability. And apart from that, there are some cloud providers, they do give 99.59s, that is 9999 percentage of availability, but that's too costly. So if you want 99.59s, after that you're going to give more amount when it comes to compared to 99.9 percentage. So that's the assurance that people that the cloud give. But again, that's the availability that the cloud can give. But coming back to your question, so what is the metrics that we collect? Yes, so it's almost same. We are not going to make any much difference. It's going to be the response times, the throughput, and the memory leaks, the memory collection, the garbage collection. Because the point here is, instead of having a machine, a hard what to say, a hard machine, a hard disk in these any of the locations, instead you're going to have a VM. That's it. That's the only difference. You're going to have a VM, a virtual machine, that's been hosted on the any of these cloud, and you're going to have the VM running. From that VM, we are going to collect these metrics. And if it is going to be a VM, then you're going to collect VM. And when it comes to cloud, so we do have the Kubernetes options as well. So we do collect those pods details as well. So the only thing that has changed is, I would say, when it comes to cloud, we do have options to scale. Say for example, when it was in on premises, we do not have options to scale out. But when it comes to, sorry, we don't have the option to scale up. But what happened is, when it comes to the cloud environments, we do have options to scale up. Say for example, if we get 80% of users, right, what happens is automatically I will spin up another machine. So instead of that 80%, they will now divide into 40 to the two machines. So because of this, what happens is I am able to manage the scalability. So if, for example, um, I'm having a user, like I'm expecting 100 users, and suddenly what happens is I'm getting 200 users to the system. When I was in on-premises, yes, the performance of the system will go down, or even the application could crash. But when it comes to cloud, I can set up the auto scalability. I can auto scale. I can spin up machines when the user load reaches 100%, 100 users. So automatically what happens is like, okay, now I'm spinning up another machine with the virtual machines, or it can be parts, whatever the cloud functionality. So what happens is like, the advantage of cloud, having advantage of cloud is that you can spin up just in moment you can spin up any amount of pods, and then you can increase the user load. And once you find that the user load has come down, say for example, automatically if the user load distribution is like 40, and then when it comes to like 20 percentage, which means like we are on 60 percentage, then automatically this one gets down and we'll be running on the first machine. So that could be the difference. But apart from that, we are not checking about, we are not going to find any other metrics, because we don't need to worry about that, because they are like part of it, they are imbibed as part of the metrics. So all we are going to see is the response times, the throughput, the percentile, the response times, the CPU memory of the VMs. That's it. Yeah. Any other doubts, any other queries with this part? Because yeah, as we all know, nowadays every application is moving on to cloud from on premises, and there are like, we do have uh, to say hybrid as well. Like we do have on premises as part of your cloud setup, where we connect both the on-prem and the cloud connections as cloud servers as well. Yeah. So yeah, any other doubts, any other queries? Shall we move to the next part?